I see that we have 2 or 3 online. Could one of you please confirm for me if you can hear us?
Hi Trish, it's Gavin here. I can hear you guys.
Thank you so much, sir. For those in the room and online, one of our guests today is testing out minutes capturing type of an app. So as long, I want, just for awareness, everyone to be aware that you kind of, how do I explain that? We're gonna summarize basically, just plugging.
Yeah, it's basically it's a speech to text, and then we'll do summaries and we'll do a transcript and translate.
We're taking the meeting. It's good to know. Yeah.
I don't even know if it works yet.
AI is interesting. Okay, so let's get started. Welcome to the Modesto Chamber of Commerce Government Relations Council meeting, or GRC meeting for the month of November. This is our last meeting together for the 2024 year. We will be dark in December, so please note that if there's calendar invitations going for December, we will make sure that those are deleted. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order at 11:40 a.m. I'm your chair, Michael Gaffney, and I would like to do some introductions. There are a lot of unfamiliar faces in the room today, which is fantastic. You're always welcome here. Starting with me, my name is Michael Gaffney. I chair the GRC here at the Modesto Chamber of Commerce. My day job is PG&E, and we'll go to Trish and around the room, and then we'll go to the folks online.
Thank you for joining us. My name is
George Kettle, Modesto Machine Works.
Jessica Hill, I'm the Director of Community and Economic Development at the City of Modesto. Cindy Severo, I'm the Public Relations and Legislative Affairs Manager for the City of Modesto.
So my name is Raja from City of Modesto from Economic Development.
Thank you.
Nick Navarro, Modesto City Council.
Eric Bonander, City of Modesto Economic Development.
Catherine Beckett, City of Modesto Economic Development.
Yamida Valladolid, I'm the Director of Government and Community Affairs for Golden Valley.
Yeah. Thank you.
Kevin Barber, Economic Development Manager with the City of Modesto.
Raleigh Algama, Chamber Member.
Nick Hiltman, software engineer, image maker development.
Christy Boyette Zacharias, Chairperson of the Chamber of Commerce. Modesto.
Alan Zacharias, President, Zacharias Advancement Consulting.
Craig Lewis, Lewis Capital Advisors.
David Wright, Modesto City Council.
Tom Aronson, CEO of Visit Modesto.
Alfredo Miranda, Office Manager for Marketing and Content.
Kyle Schneider, Small Business Owner.
Alexis Chavez, District Representative for Senator Mario Rodriguez.
Ramon Mendez, I do marketing for Citadel Innovations, and I'm a welcome team member with them.
Jeff Freeman, F2 Business Consulting.
My name is Patrick Shields. I'm the field representative assistant to Chairman Manny Greenwald, Stanislaus County Police.
I'm Chelsea Pfeiffer. I'm part of the Welcome Committee for the Modesto Chamber, and I'm your staff.
You're Justin Lee.
Oh, how's it going, guys? Justin Parkins representing the Office of Assemblyman Juan Alanis.
Can we go online, please? Gavin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you guys. Gavin Klein, Field Representative for the Office of Congressman John Duarte.
Thank you. Roger Dale, are you available to introduce?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Roger Dale with the Nadelson Dale Group, and we are preparing the Economic Development Strategic Plan for the City of Modesto. We appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
And Paul.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Saldana, and I'm working with Roger Dale on the Economic Development Strategic Plan for the City of Modesto.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay, so can you kindly remind me who's representing Senator Maria Rodriguez's office today?
Alexis Chavez.
And the same for Congressman McClintock's office.
Alfredo.
I'm sorry,
Alfredo Miranda.
Alfredo. It'll make sense momentarily. Okay, so you should have received the board packet via email. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. David, second, Cecil, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carried unanimously. I appreciate that. So we're moving into report outs. We'll go to the elected officials in the room, council members, and then Jessica or Trevin, if you have anything that you'd like to add. The opportunity to do so.
Nothing to report, me. Big trouble this week, so.
Okay.
Okay. Like some exciting things at House and Council this last week, we are going to be having an accessory dwelling unit revolving loan fund. And so to help promote the construction of accessory dwelling units, we're partnering with Valley First Credit Union. And we anticipate this will launch in early 2025. The second thing is we are going to have a affordable housing trust as well. This is in partnership with STEP. So excited for these two new programs to help assist with additional housing opportunities.
I wanted to put so many years, some great news about our dog rating.
Yeah, actually, the city of Modesto recently received by Moody's Credit bond upgrades to our lease remedy bonds and our water bonds. And our water bonds, we haven't received an upgrade since 2008. So that's a significant accomplishment and demonstration of fiscal stability and strength for the state of Modesto. So we're really excited to share that.
That was a water bonds upgrade.
Water bonds and
At our last city council meeting, Tuesday, the city council approved extending the moratorium, emergency moratorium on slow shops in Modesto, 10 months. That will allow the city attorney's office and the rest of the police department to complete their review of new ordinance.
Any questions for the city of Modesto? We kind of went right into a county update. Any other updates from the Stanislaus County representatives?
Yeah, so this week at the board meeting, there was approval to establish a farm worker advisory committee. That is something that has been kind of in the pipeline and been worked on by the counties and the state office for a little bit. It's an opportunity to give a voice to our farm workers throughout the county. There can be 2 representatives from each supervisory district, a member of 4 other members, I think it's 14 total, a member from community organizations, as well as a member representing farm worker. Essentially, it's a contract worker. But essentially, it's in order to bring a stronger voice to our farm workers throughout the county, better representation, and then advise the board of supervisors on lots of policy changes moving forward. Again, we just celebrated Veterans Day, so thank you to all of our veterans for being in the room. Thank you for your service. The chairman and some city council members and the city of Modesto celebrated at the Veterans Center on coffee and celebrated our veterans on Monday this week. Seems like forever ago. Friday. Other than that, the county continues to move forward. Excited for the holiday season and for the Christmas parade coming up in the city. So happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you. Valley posted a good video of the Veterans Day.
All right. Any questions? For Stanislaus County? We'll move into Assemblyman Juan Alanis's office. Justin?
Yeah, you stand up here. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for having me again. First and foremost, the Assemblyman would like me to extend a heartfelt thank you to all who have been supporting him over the past 2 years, and he is incredibly excited to get the opportunity to represent the area of Sacramento again for the next 2 years. Really, only thing I have to bring is that we are actively encouraging the members of the community here to bring forward legislative proposals and ideas going into the next year. The Assemblyman rightfully deserves to take some of the credit for the efforts that he's put in and the success that he had in his first term, having 14 bills passed in those past 2 years. But a lot of that is because of the generated proposals coming from the community. The first bill that he did have signed, AB 1471, the Nevaeh Youth Sports Act, was a bill that was actually brought from here in the community, from the family of a young lady named Nevaeh who tragically lost her life because of her lack of access to a leader at a Pop Warner sports practice. So we were able to open that up to contracting groups like Pop Warner programs to have access to AEDs on school campuses. And that's just one example of the many other bills that we were able to see passed through the legislature this year. So if you have any idea, no matter how big or small, and really in any topic area, we're willing to tackle it and do the research and see how we can make the best out of the next 2 years in Sacramento. So please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be here through the remainder of the meeting and afterward. Sounds like Todd might have something for me already. He whispered something to me. So please bring us everything you got. We're willing to tackle it. Thank you.
Andrew, when Trevor's presenting, if you can give us just a minute and you can take his seat. Thank you.
Any questions for Assemblyman Alanis's office? We'll move into Senator Maria Aurora Gill's office, with Alexis.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's my first time here, so obviously a lot of you, hopefully for a while. So I'm here to present three big things that the senator has done. Senator Maria Aurora Gill, she's championing infrastructure upgrades to improve the quality for life, improve the quality of life for underserved Modesto communities. He said, and I quote, "Our community has dealt with years of uninvestment, especially in our infrastructure, but these projects could turn a corner in improving transportation, shortening travel times, and making it easier for people to get a job and services." In the letters to the California Transportation Commission, Senator Maria Aurora voiced her strong support for the 7th Street Bridge replacement project and the State Route 132 West Gate to the Coast project, both of which aim to improve connectivity and safety in the region. The senator also pledges financial support to save the Modesto Veterans Day Parade. So she's matching $5,000 in donations to make next year's parade happen. And also the senator secured $12.4 million in homelessness for the 4th Senate District, and Stanislaus County is getting $5,891,232. That's my report today.
Any questions for Alexis? I do have one. Is Narinder or Destiny still on your team?
Narinder, yes, Destiny, no, and I'm gonna be the one that will be attending the meeting for now.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Look out for it.
Moving into Congressman Tom McClintock's office with Alfredo.
Good morning, everyone. So at the moment, there is no legislative updates. The congressman did speak at the Veterans ceremony this Monday on Coffee Road in remembrance and our gratefulness for veterans. And also, if anyone's trying to request inauguration tickets, they're welcome to contact our DC office, and our team there will be happy to take those requests. So once again, thank you so much for today.
All right. Any questions for Alfredo? Also had one for you. Is King and or Bob still up on your team?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving into Congressman John Duarte's office with Gavin on the line.
Hello, everybody. Thank you all for having me. I apologize. I'm having some technical difficulties with my camera, but I'm happy to be here with you all today. I just want to give you all a quick update on Congressman Duarte. Congressman Duarte was also able to attend the Modesto Veterans Day early in the morning. The congressman was throughout the district honoring our veterans and their dedicated service to our community as well as our country. The Congressman Duarte was honored to be there out there with them and represent them in Washington, D.C. and our nation's capital. I want to talk to you briefly about Congressman Duarte's newest immigration bill. Congressman Duarte announced the Border Security and Immigration Reform Act. A couple of weeks ago, we introduced this bill in Livingston. We were joined by local elected officials, community members, and advocates. The event underscored the urgent need for comprehensive immigration reform and strengthened border security. The bill has been a result of 2 years collaboration with Valley leaders that Congressman Duarte had from both parties. Congressman Duarte has hosted many immigration roundtables as well as immigration town halls throughout the district. And Congressman Duarte recently introduced or announced his 1,000 mayors to gain nationwide support and feedback from local officials on his bill, getting the sign in support of. And, Congressman Duarte always says that family workers and communities throughout our valley truly want real immigration solutions, not any political grandstanding. Congressman Duarte's bill does protect our immigrant communities and brings them out of the shadows, protects our communities against drug trafficking, and improves our valley economy. Congressman Duarte is proud to work with both his Republican and Democratic colleagues and local leaders to fix our immigration and border systems. We had many elected officials, community members, and groups in attendance for our press conference where Congressman Duarte introduced the bill. And we were also joined by Mayor Michael Clausell and his wife to share their story and their perspective on the immigration system. And it was great to hear from both of them. Some of the key provisions on the bill is enhanced border security. This bill will allocate new resources and technologies to complete the southern border and expand the Customs and Border Protection Force, addressing drug trafficking and unauthorized entry. It has a temporary protected status for eligible individuals, including a permanent fix to Dreamer and DACA. Long-term Valley residents and those with U.S. citizen spouses or children can obtain a temporary protected status for 5 years while the government works to secure the border. And this bill, Congressman Duarte's bill that he's brought forward, builds on the Dignity Act, which Congressman Duarte was a co-sponsor in 2023 last year. And then there's a transition to legal status. So with the temporary protected status holders, will transition to a permanent status after 5 years if the southern border is secure. And it adds an agricultural workforce support and establishes a blue card system to protect undocumented agricultural workers and allow them to return to the U.S. If they travel back to their country of origin. So Congressman Duarte was extremely proud to bring that bill forward and have the support of the community, and really looking forward to that bill moving forward. And then something really important as well is this past Tuesday, Congressman Duarte had the opportunity to join the San Luis and Delta Mendota Water Authority, the Westlands Water Authority, and others, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, and members of both parties to sign the principle of agreement for the BF Skis Dam Raising and Reservoir Expansion Project. This is a landmark project that will add 130,000 acre feet of additional storage to the San Luis Reservoir, and it will help provide reliable water for over 2 million families, 1 million acres of farmland, and vital wildlife habitat in our Central Valley. This project is actually one of the first major federal surface water storage capacities since late 1970s. And it's the first new capacity in California since the 1990s. So this is extremely important, and Congressman Duarte was happy to be there. And Congressman released a statement. It says, when our valley has water, we have good paying jobs and affordable groceries. The expansion of the San Luis Reservoir is a vital step towards securing water abundance for valley families, farms, and communities. 130,000 acre feet of additional water storage capacity at San Luis Reservoir will help provide our communities with more water we need. It is a starting step, but we need to do more. That's why Congressman Duarte is also bringing his Democrat and Republican friends together to extend the Folsom South Canal to send more water to our valley. We also must build Site Reservoir and enlarge Shasta Reservoir to capture more water during the wet years for the dry ones. Some of the key benefits from this project are increased storage. So enlarging the San Luis Reservoir allows to capture up to 130,000 acre feet of additional water that we can use in our valley. It brings economic growth by bringing additional water to the valley. It will create more good paying jobs in agriculture and allow us to build more homes and make groceries cheaper. And then environmental stewardship. The project does help support the Pacific Flyway wetlands and wildlife habitats in our region. So Congressman Duarte was honored and very happy to be there for the signing of this. And Congressman Duarte is continuing to advocate for California's 13th congressional district in our nation's capital. And if there's any questions, I can go ahead and answer.
Any questions? Gavin?
When will the election be called?
I am on official time, so I can't talk about any campaign regarded issues or elections, but hopefully soon.
Gotcha, thank you.
I can speak to that a little bit, just because it is a little bit of a state issue. So this year, the Assembly passed Assembly Bill 3144, which for only this election, which is interesting, all counties are required to certify their elections no earlier than December 3rd. So December 3rd is now the deadline, and because of that, some of our registrars, including Donna Lender, have made it clear that they're gonna be taking their time to December 3rd, because what's the justification, right? Why are they gonna pay the overtime and bust the backs of their employees? And she's right, why do that? So it's gonna definitely take some time. Officially, the election is certified by the Secretary of State on December 13th.
So in Florida, by midnight on election day, they announced every winner in the state in every position in their paper ballots. Just for your input.
And that is an issue that we are researching actively in those Alameda sites.
All right. If there's no further questions for Gavin, we'll move into an update from Todd Aronson.
It's been a real busy time in the tourism segment. Just to give you an idea, in Stanislaus County, according to Dean Runyon Associates, tourism represents over $500 million in annual revenue and almost 7,000 jobs. So as a result of our trip with Visit Modesto and sister cities to Japan earlier this year, we just booked the first event with Japan Travel Bureau. They're bringing 4 tours to Modesto next year. Visit California is bringing their top travel buyers from Tokyo to Modesto on December 3rd and 4th. They'll stay at the DoubleTree, they'll go to Skewers, we will take them ice skating on a mural tour. They'll do an olive oil tasting and get an almond butter milkshake out of Roberts Ferry. And then we just remotely participated with Visit California in a travel program in Tokyo and brought in over 150 travel leads. While on vacation in Europe, I took a day to do a PR event in London and a sister cities program in France. We already have press for Modesto from London, and we just shipped a case of Shabika olive oil and nuts from Rodin to Laval, France. And they want to do a case of each per quarter for their fundraisers. This week, Visit California hosted all the Welcome Center managers from the state of California in Modesto. That's from San Clemente to Ukiah, 21 different travel managers. They spent 2 days here, and one said, I had no idea Modesto was so cool. And then we're starting to roll out our plans for Almond Blossom Cruise. Last year, almost 100,000 visitors came through the region. So if your business or one of your partner organizations want to participate, just contact me so we can get them involved. We do have Modesto swag for the holidays, Mo-Cheer hats and shirts, always fresh Modesto hats and more. And we will be selling those through the holidays. We're right across the street over here on 12th Street. And we do have a welcome center there. So if you're traveling anywhere in the state of California, we have staff that can help you plan and arrange your travel trip. We also have collateral from all over the state of California supplied by the state to Modesto. And lastly, we have our annual report is now printed and it's online. If anybody wants a copy of that, just let me know and we'll make sure you get one. Thank you.
Todd, if you'd like to have a small stack of those here in our, you're welcome.
Thanks.
What did you say? Number one, I need those hats and I'm not tour for me up. And then when I want the brochure, but who are you giving the familiarization tour to?
The FAM tour in December are the 8 top travel buyers from Tokyo coming with Visit California. So as a result of the trip, when we spent time in Tokyo with Visit California staff there, they included Modesto for the first time on their annual FAM trip for top travel buyers. So they're coming into San Francisco, going to Monterey. They will stop in Modesto on their way to Yosemite, do Yosemite, and then they'll go up towards Sacramento and back out through San Francisco, which is the new loop we're trying to create with travel buyers out of the Asian continent, so that Modesto is in that loop on the way to Yosemite.
That's super exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, we had Colette tours last year, but 50 tours over 2 years, changing the routing and not going up to Yosemite. And it's expensive now up in Madera and Yosemite, so Modesto gives a great alternative and a lot to do.
Oh, yeah, quick question. So, silly question, but, do you also, like, I know a lot of people that visit Modesto, they want to try the taco truck from Modesto. Do you ever like?
We
go
heavily
out
promote
branding and all
taco
that
trucks. We had 15 youth from Japan here over the summer that we took on a walking tour downtown. And for lunch, we actually took them to the Grubhub's.
Oh, okay.
8th Street Taco Trucks is actually something we promote frequently because it's such a hot spot to go. So it is, in the food truck culture here is something we definitely promote on a regular basis.
Because I know Hispanics that visit Modesto, they want to go to the flea market.
Yeah.
and check it out, so maybe,
Excellent. I'll hook up with you after. That's great. Thank you.
No.
Okay. All right. So, any questions for Todd? Appreciate your continued, support in promoting our city and the greater community. Appreciate that very much. I don't see Dana with MID. League of California City, Stephen Qualls, I believe he is traveling. So in the spirit of his truth or lie game, I think it'd be interesting if we do something for the latest elections. So I'm gonna run through these and you tell me if it's a truth or lie, and it's gonna keep me honest because we continue to track this stuff and our Modesto Political Action Committee or PAC is gonna be meeting to determine what campaigns we'd like to contribute to. So here we go. MID Board of Directors, Division 5. Nick Blom defeated Chris Ott. Truth or lie? Lie. Larry Bird ran unopposed. True. Modesto City Council, District 1, Rosa Scutia Brayton defeated John and Joel.
True.
Not certified.
Yeah, I'm saying not certified.
Consider that to be true. District 3. Ricky ran against Michael Gaffney. No. And it's uncertified. I'll give it unopposed. No, not at all. No intention or desire. District 6, David Wright defeated Austin Grant. Certification. We'll consider that to be true.
I did.
Congratulations. Moving into Assembly District 9. Tammy defeated Heath Flora.
No.
District 22, Juan Allen East defeated Jessica Sell.
Very true.
Congress, District 5, Tom McClintock defeated Michael Barkley. District 9, Kevin Lincoln shocked the world and defeated Josh Harder. False. District 13, we covered this. Incumbent John Duarte defeated Adam Gray.
Unclear.
How close is it?
John Kelly has 1,700 vote lead.
That, it shrunk.
It got cut close to half, with the Stanislaus County drop last time.
President Madera updating.
Do they always drop on Tuesday and Thursday?
Stanislaus County does always drop on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Fresno, Madera, San Joaquin counties, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Awesome. Okay, other business or announcements?
Memorized, guys.
I have a couple of them.
Oh, okay.
Okay, 3 of us here, Michael, Rich, myself, are board members of the Boys and Girls Club Stanislaus. And last night we had a reception for our new president. His name is Jeremy Martinez. And we're looking forward to that. We serve over 1,000 kids in our local schools here in the Modesto area. And then second announcement is next Thursday, the 20th, the Graffiti Museum is going to host 3,000 8th grade students that will be feeding into Modesto high school areas. And we're looking forward to that, correct, Rich?
Yep, it's the Chambers Inspire Youth, Inspire Dreams, Career Exploration Expo. Yes, on Wednesday the 20th. Right now, we're anticipating 32 to 3,400 eighth graders to get bused in and out in the course of 6 hours or less. So it's quite the ordeal, but it's super fun. And we're spent all the last eighth grade weeks.
So you're competing in to be community council.
Very good. Thank you for opening the doors to great events and causes. And then I thought that we'd call out the Tuesday, November 19th regional multi-chamber mixer. Okay, I have that right? All right. Very good.
And there's a non-perishable food drive, a part of that. We have chambers coming from the Livermore chambers coming, Stockton chamber, Escalon chamber, and so the non-perishable food is benefiting Second Harvest in Central Valley, which covers all.
Any questions there?
We'll just all throw one more, so we're done. On December 10th is our annual holiday open house right here at the chamber. We'll create a swing in and through. Open hall.
Okay, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Trevin Barber, Economic Development Manager with the City of Modesto. He's here to discuss the City of Modesto's 5-year economic development plan. And I respectfully ask that everybody hold back their questions until the end of the presentation so we can stay on track and most of all, keep him sane throughout this.
Keep Cecil on line.
Don't worry, Cecil, we've got 30 minutes just for your questions.
Well, plenty of time at the end, but let's try to power through it and then we'll focus on Q&A.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, and so thank you so much for hosting us and having this year. I just enjoyed the lunch sponsored by the City of Modesto. We wanted to reach out to the GRC and the Chamber of Commerce to explain how far we've come with planning our economic development strategic plan. So at the beginning of 2024, Council authorized staff to execute an agreement with the Nettleson Dale Company. There are consultants that have been helping us for the better part of this year put together this strategic plan. They started off doing a lot of research on our market, looking at overall trends. And then, as many of you know, because these are all familiar faces, I saw you participate in a lot of our stakeholder engagement meetings. We kicked it off with a stakeholder summit where we gathered at Center Plaza and we talked about the market research that they had conducted and got your thoughts and got your opinions on the market and what we could do with Modesto's opportunities. We did a SWOT analysis for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then we did a series of those meetings in various different formats and workshops to gauge the community's interest and understand their needs as a community as it pertains to economic development. So we've come about 70% through our planning process. And right now we have a administrative draft of our economic development strategic plan. This is a critical milestone. This is a junction where we could go completely 2 different ways. So we've listened to everybody's input in the community, and Roger Dale and his team, Paul, have put together a recommendation list of over 100 recommendations of things that the city could consider as a part of their economic development strategic plan. And this is the moment now where we're very interested in hearing everybody's thoughts as to do these recommendations match what your feedback was during the stakeholder engagement process. And we're looking for your feedback. We're looking for you to critique these and to make sure that they align with your values. Does it match what the chamber's trying to do? Does it match what San Alfonso 2030 is trying to do? What in these plans speak to Modesto's unique competitive advantages for developing our economy? So that's where we stand right now. Roger Dale is going to present and he's going to go through those recommendations. He's going to tie the connection between here's what we heard and here's what our recommendations are. And he's going to explain those concepts now for you. So thank you again for hosting us, and I hope you can learn a lot from his presentation. So take it away, Roger.
Great, thanks very much, Trevin, and appreciate everyone's letting us join by Zoom so we can present this information. We're excited about it, and as Trevin mentioned, it would be helpful if we could go through our presentation and then be glad to save a lot of time at the end for your questions and comments. I'm going to share my screen now, and okay. So first of all, I'll introduce ourselves again. I'm Roger Dale with the Nadelson Dale Group. As Trevin mentioned, we've had the privilege of working with the city since earlier this year on preparing a new economic development strategic plan for the city. Joined today by Paul Sadania, who is a part of our team and a longtime economic development practitioner throughout California and especially in the Central Valley, and really excited to have him working with us on a couple of areas: identifying potential target industries for the city, and also based on his experience as a manager for many years of different economic development organizations, working with the city to develop recommendations for how this plan might be organized and how the city might staff the plan for implementation. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. So the work that we've completed to date has involved a mix of outreach to stakeholders throughout the community and the region, as well as technical analysis completed by our team. We are aware, and it's actually very good timing, that there are a number of regional studies and initiatives going on at the moment that is very good, dovetail very well with what the city will be doing at the local level, including such initiatives as Beam Circular, Stanislaus 2030, North Valley Thrive, and others. And so we spent a good deal of time at the outset of the project getting acquainted with those processes and determining how the city of Modesto could best connect with them and to leverage that regional investment and interest at the present time. We then did a range of stakeholder meetings specific to the city of Modesto, and I know a number of you have participated, and we really appreciate your enthusiasm for the process. As Trevin mentioned, we started back in May with a community-wide stakeholder summit that was really intended to be kind of an orientation of the process, to get ideas on the table that the community thought would be important to address or consider in an economic development plan for the city, and also to begin to identify other stakeholders in the region that should be included in subsequent steps of the process. During the summer, we hosted a number of economic development forums specifically geared toward identifying roles that the city could play in implementing this strategy as it relates to connections with partner organizations in the community. The four forums were organized around panel discussions of invited experts and local officials that were experts on the particular topics, and then a group discussion, as I mentioned, to identify how the city could leverage that information in a strategic way. The first forum was focused on workforce development. Then the next one was about entrepreneurial development. We then had a forum dealing with state policies and resources that might affect local economic development in both positive and negative ways, and how the city could and its partners locally could best interface with those state policies. And then the final forum was about placemaking, and we spent quite a bit of time talking about opportunities to apply placemaking tools to, in particular, the downtown in Modesto, and there were some really exciting ideas that came out of that meeting. Also this summer, the city hosted the first Central Valley Real Estate Summit, and that was an excellent opportunity to gain exposure to a large range of developers and brokers in the commercial and industrial real estate field, and to expose them to opportunities for future development in Modesto. And then finally wanted to mention that we have had a community workshop open to the general public that was both online and in person. And that was, again, a way to get better exposure of this process to the larger Modesto community. At the same time of doing this stakeholder outreach, we completed a number of market studies looking at demographics, target industry, and demand for commercial and real estate development in the future of Modesto. And all of this has been wrapped into what is essentially a business retention, expansion, and recruitment strategy, also including a focus on entrepreneurial development. And that focus on business development is really the core of the draft economic development strategic plan that Trevin mentioned. It's been completed as a preliminary draft. Probably we would describe it as being about 70% complete. And in the coming weeks, we will be refining that document, getting it to maybe a 90% completion level that will be then available as a public review and comment opportunity. One of the items that we're working on that will be fleshed out more fully in that next version of the document are recommendations for staffing and organization of the city's economic development program. And as I mentioned, this is really Paul Sidonia's area of expertise, and we're excited to have that input. So I'd like to go back to an earlier part of the process where we did a SWOT analysis, and both through our own studies as well as primarily input from local stakeholders, identified strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats affecting potentials for economic development in Modesto. And I won't go into these in great detail now, but we're certainly glad to respond to questions or take other ideas as we finish the presentation. So in terms of strengths, we know that Modesto has a strong base of core industries, including agriculture, food processing, logistics, manufacturing, and healthcare that provide a good launching point for future business and employment growth. We also know that Modesto has within the larger California market the advantage of being an affordable location, both as it relates to affordable housing as well as competitive costs of doing business in what is generally described as a business-friendly environment. Part of that competitive advantage includes the availability of an independent water district, which assures competitive pricing and also water availability for future development. We know that as in most places in the U.S. right now, unemployment rates are relatively low and representing a strong economy, which we believe is poised in the long term for additional growth. And specific to Modesto, it's interesting that your commercial and industrial real estate markets are relatively strong in terms of vacancy rates. Retail, office, and industrial all have vacancy rates under 5%, which is considerably better, especially as it relates to office space, than other markets in California. Additional strengths, we're very impressed by the workforce development organizations and programs that are available. Saw some very innovative things there that were described in one of our forums. And that is something that provides a great potential for a partnership or partnerships with those organizations in the city as part of this plan. Also related to potential partnerships, we note that there's a concentration of nonprofit organizations based in Modesto, which can be especially effective channels for the city to engage in ongoing community outreach related to economic development as this plan is implemented. Beyond just the local level, the city, of course, has established and expanding collaborations with a range of regional partners, probably representing a number of the organizations that are in the room today, and those will play prominently in implementation of this plan. One of the big picture strengths that applies not only to Modesto, but the surrounding region is that you've got a legendary agricultural economy that really is unparalleled in the country. And that's what's especially uncommon about that is that it's in close proximity to a superstar, what's called a superstar tech hub, being the Bay Area and the Silicon Valley. Probably one of the few places, if not the only place in the country where those things are in such close proximity. We got some good feedback about the current city council in Modesto as being engaged with the community and supportive of economic development, and we certainly intend to leverage that strength as part of the implementation of this plan. And generally, we get the feedback that this is a community that is close-knit, combines a small town feel with larger city opportunities, and that can certainly be a selling point in an economic development marketing program. Now, we'd also like to talk about some of the weaknesses that were identified. I think first and foremost was the sense that Modesto has an image problem, especially as it relates to people who are outside the community and not necessarily familiar with the reality on the ground, that it's not necessarily perceived as an attractive place to come to live or to visit or do business. And this is certainly something that we will be addressing head on as part of the economic development strategy. Part of that image relates to the perception that there's a lack of amenities that would be attractive to young professionals or other demographic groups that might be important going forward. There'd be related to that a lack of housing diversity that might appeal to that type of demographic. We also noted that there's a lack of shovel-ready industrial land or spec buildings available for industrial business types to come to the community, and that, of course, can be a constraint as it relates to business attraction. There's generally a lack of awareness in the business community between available resources that the city and its partners have to assist the business community, and that disconnect, if you will, applies across a number of types of disciplines, especially as it relates to workforce development programs. There's often a disconnect between the service providers and the private firms that might take advantage of the services that they provide. And then further on that point, there appears to be some degree of disconnect between the city's business assistance resources and specific communities and neighborhoods that might most be in need of them. Related to that, there is a perception that the city does not do enough to engage underserved communities. And we know that this is an ongoing challenge in many communities, many cities, and something that we think the city can kind of leverage the momentum of this process to get better connections with those communities. In different parts of the community, public transit and mobility options are limited, which can have an effect on placemaking and trying to create a destination in some communities. Looking at the demographic data, we note that there is a relatively low level of educational attainment among Modesto residents, whereas about 20% of residents in Modesto have a bachelor's degree or higher. Statewide, that number is about 37%. So we can see there's a relatively low compared to statewide averages on educational attainment. In reviewing some of the data that came out of the Stanislaus 2030 process, we note that the county as a whole has lagged in what's called business dynamism. And that basically is a way of saying that the area has underperformed in terms of the creation and sustainability of new businesses. And we know that that's something that's being addressed in detail as part of the rollout of Stanislaus 2030 and also will be an important part of the city's focus for its plan. And retail sales, of course, are important to a community, not only in terms of sales tax, but also because it's a kind of a proxy for a quality of life or level of amenities that are in the community in terms of the goods and services that are available to residents. And that generally has, over the past 5 to 10 years, has not kept pace at the city level with the growth that has occurred at the county and state levels. And that would suggest that new development outside the city has created increased leakage of resident spending to those outside retail shopping areas. Now, on the opportunity side, I've noted earlier that there are a number of exciting initiatives going on: Beam Circular, Stanislaus 2030, North Valley Thrive. And we think the timing is just perfect for the city to launch its own economic development strategy while building on and connecting to these regional initiatives. For example, the city could position itself in a manner that it could maximize the capture of opportunities that are generated by the Beam Circular initiative. So, for example, we know that ultimately that initiative will generate new business investment, new employment, and that will be a regional focus, but we'd like to see the city of Modesto get its fair share, or maybe even more than its fair share, of that new investment and development. We've heard a lot about opportunities and the excellent work that's already going on in terms of trying to position Modesto as a visitor destination and or an entertainment district. And we do agree that that's a great next level opportunity for Modesto. There are, related to that and in general, opportunities to pursue placemaking in the downtown, the waterfront, and other sub-areas of the community. And in particular in the downtown, we really think that area is ready to take the step to the next level as a visitor destination and potentially a housing option, which would be a effective economic development tool on a number of fronts. And then we've heard that the city of Modesto, relatively speaking, has a good reputation for business and development friendliness. I think it's perceived that that has improved over time with changes in the leadership. But I would say that we've got some feedback that maybe you're not as competitive as some of the best cities in the valley. And this might be an opportunity to continue to improve the reputation and what the city delivers in terms of business and development friendliness. We definitely believe that the timing is right and the interest levels are right for the city to launch a major initiative focused on entrepreneurism and innovation, both through partnerships and with local resources. The overall strategy we've presented will focus on growing key industry clusters around historic core industries, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. We know that the larger issue of climate change and climate resilience can be also pursued as a business development opportunity, and we think there's some specific ways that the city can do that, and again, within the context of regional initiatives, position itself as a leader. The Regional Bioeconomy Development Opportunity Zone, BDO designation, is again an opportunity that can kind of roll some of these concepts into a message that the city is ready for that type of business and sustainable development. The growing acceptance of remote work is something that we believe potentially is advantageous for communities like Modesto, which historically have been kind of on the periphery of major employment centers. So for example, we know that there are a number of people who live in Modesto and Stanislaus County who are connected or employed by firms in the Bay Area. In some cases they commute there, in some cases they can do that remotely, and we think that the growing acceptance of remote work could present opportunities to attract more of that workforce to Modesto and potentially lead to investment of those firms for new ventures in the community itself. I mentioned earlier the need to potentially expand business development outreach to different communities and potentially in a bilingual format. And we think this is something that the city is poised to do. And then we also think that that ties to a larger theme of inclusive economic development. And certainly there are emerging regional models and frameworks that the city can position itself as a leader in that front as well. I think we heard already in one of your presentations earlier this morning about activities that we would describe as being part of the food culture. And we know that that is often a driver of destination tourism and can connect strongly to the types of things that Modesto is strong in terms of agriculture and food processing. And we've heard from the community that there's really an interest in pursuing this as a next level business and tourism opportunity. Like most communities around the country, the change of the retail industry can present challenges, and we would expect that this is something that the city of Modesto will need to stay on top of and think about ways that the city can proactively support the evolution of older retail shopping centers consistent with what those market trends are. The city has some real estate that it owns, not necessarily a lot, but some key sites that could potentially be leveraged for economic development or private public development, and we've identified some of those in the plan. And I mentioned earlier the idea of remote work being a potential catalyst for technology-based development in Modesto. And one of the initial pathways that's already underway in Modesto is to train Modesto residents to be specifically remote workers in technology industries headquartered in technology firms headquartered in the Bay Area. In the downtown and in other parts of Modesto, there are a number of pending investments in public infrastructure, the ACE train, the transit center, the courthouse. There are certainly opportunities to leverage that and to use that as a way to attract additional private investment. And just as part of an overall focus on efficiency and effective delivery of the city's programming, there's probably opportunities to expand the use of virtual economic development services. Finally, the area of threats, there's the outdated perception that Modesto's development approval process is cumbersome and political. Even if that's an outdated perception, if it's still out there, it can be a threat to our progress in terms of economic business attraction. We certainly know that there are state level regulations that are unfavorable to business attraction in California, and these are things that the city will need to navigate to kind of create its own image within that larger policy region. Same might apply to county level regulations and restrictions on businesses. I've noted earlier that the retail industry, of course, has globally evolved because of e-commerce, and this is something that can be a threat if we're not responsive to it, but it also can be an opportunity to attract new investment into sites that were previously occupied by brick and mortar retail facilities. The potential of housing development, of course, is important for the city for a number of reasons, but to the extent that land that was previously anticipated for commercial and industrial use converts to housing, that can potentially be kind of a dilemma from the city's standpoint of making sure we have the capacity for additional employment growth. And then finally, in terms of the area of threats, we're all aware of all the discussion around climate change now, and what we might think about is that that's a threat not only environmentally, but it also can be a regulatory or a cost impact of adapting to new regulations to the business community. And there are ways that that can be mitigated, and also, as I've mentioned, ways that potentially could be turned into a business attraction message or tool. So what I'd like to do now is outline the major components of the Economic Development Strategic Plan. This is a plan that's intended to guide the City of Modesto's economic development programs and policies for approximately the next 5 years. The preliminary draft that we've completed includes a mix of programs that can be implemented basically immediately and generate near-term results, as well as more ambitious and visionary programs that might take many years, even beyond that 5-year time frame, to be fully activated. The business development component of this plan is prepared around 5 targeted industry clusters, and we've gone through a number of studies as well as stakeholder outreach and competitive assessments to kind of identify these as the most important areas of focus for the city. And the 5 are listed here. Number 1 is agribusiness and food processing. Number 2 is advanced manufacturing. 3 is healthcare and biotechnology. Number 4 is tourism, hospitality, and retail. And then number 5 is technology and professional services. And you'll note that these things include a mix of things that are very long-standing historic core industries in Stanislaus County, as well as things that have grown in recent years, and things that might emerge in future years based on kind of a mix of historic business types as well as more technologically focused new and emerging industries. Our draft plan is organized around a total of 11 strategy categories, or what we're calling focus areas. And those are in turn broken down in terms of 22 recommendations, which I'll outline this afternoon. And those are carried out through 122 specific action items. And that 122 is a number that's probably going to evolve as we continue to refine the document. There may be some new things added, and there may be some other things that get deprioritized, but as it stands now, we're at roughly 120 action items, which sounds like a pretty overwhelming tall order, if you will, for the city to implement. But we've been emphasizing and discussing this with the city leaders that many of the things that are recommended as action items are continuations of existing programs that are already in place. So it's not necessarily a matter of creating a new program, but in some cases continuing an existing program and refocusing it around the priorities that have been identified through this process. And as I mentioned, some of these things will not be implemented in the first year or two of the plan, so they're not all going to come online at the same time. And many of them will be carried out through partnerships. So the city will take a leadership in focusing these resources specifically in Modesto, but a number of them will connect to regional resources and partnerships where the city won't necessarily have direct responsibility or primary responsibility for carrying out some of the programs and recommended action items. So the focus area 1 is brand and image, and we've kind of highlighted here on the right side of the slide some of the findings from our SWOT analysis that relate to this particular focus area. So I would say as a strength in terms of branding and marketing the community for economic development, that there are many assets and opportunities, some of which are currently under-recognized, but could be better recognized through a strong image enhancement campaign. In terms of weaknesses, we've already talked about the image challenges that Modesto has, and that would be something that would be directly addressed by this focus area. In terms of opportunities, we've talked about the opportunity to maximize the impact of regional initiatives, and that has both a program component, but it also has a marketing or a messaging component that would be part of this focus area. And then I've also mentioned the opportunity to expand the use of virtual economic development services, and that can be, again, kind of enhanced through an effective messaging system just to make the availability of those services known to the business community and the public that would utilize them. So within focus area 1, recommendation 1 is to upgrade the city's economic development website. Sounds like a pretty basic thing, but if it's done well, it can represent a good portion of a staff person's time to keep that up to date and effective. Recommendation 2 is to implement an image enhancement campaign with the intent of replacing some of those negative or inaccurate perceptions about the community with more positive messaging. Focus area 2 is community engagement and inclusion. Some of the strengths here are the wide array of community level partners that can effectively be messengers or in a sense advocates for the city in terms of carrying out its message of economic development to the whole community. Also a strength I think here is that the City Council is recognized currently for having strong support of this program and for economic development. That has evolved over the years, and I think we're at a point where we can continue to leverage that interest. Some of the weaknesses here related to community engagement include a lack of awareness of business assistance resources and also concerns about the level of engagement in specific underserved communities. Opportunities would include expanding business assistance outreach to BIPOC communities and also leveraging regional models for inclusive economic development. So recommendation 3 is to include community engagement as an ongoing or core function of the city's economic development program. We like to say that this type of an engagement program is not just a one-off event during the time that the plan is being developed, but really can become sort of a permanent way of doing business for the city. Recommendation 4 is to integrate the practice of inclusive economic development into all aspects and phases of the EDSP implementation. Kind of think of this inclusive economic development as not a program in itself, but it's just essentially a way of doing business that cuts through all aspects of the city's program.
Roger, if I could just throw in real quick, our meeting is scheduled until 1. So we have about 20 minutes where we will lose some of our audience.
Thank you. Appreciate the reminder, and I'll kind of speed this up because I do want to save some time for comments and questions. So recommendation or program area 3 is placemaking, and maybe I won't read the SWOT highlights. We've kind of talked about them before, but you can see them on the side as I'm talking. Recommendation 5 is to lead or coordinate efforts to position downtown Modesto as a Central Valley visitor destination. This, of course, is something that there are a number of players and partners already involved with. The idea is for the city to take more of a leadership role in coordinating and supplementing the resources of those efforts, especially in the downtown. Recommendation 6 is to implement a range of programs and policies aimed at enhancing the placemaking potentials of the downtown and other distinct sub-areas. And as I mentioned earlier, we know that there are a number of separate organizations and partners that are involved in doing downtown economic development. And the idea of recommendation 6 is for the city to supplement that with programs and policies that where there might be currently gaps in pulling all those pieces together. Focus area 4 is development capacity and business friendliness. This is kind of broken down along the lines of different land uses. Recommendation 7 is to expand industrial space and development capacity. Recommendation 8 is to promote revitalization and expansion of Modesto's commercial development footprint. In other words, working with obsolete or outdated shopping centers to provide new development opportunities there. Recommendation 9 is to integrate housing related policies and programs with economic development opportunities. And of course, there's a huge connection between housing and economic development, because that's really the nexus between workforce and economic development. That housing attracts workforce, that in turn attracts business development opportunities. Recommendation 10 is to implement across the board improvements in the city's business development and permitting and approval processes. And this is something the city has already been engaged with for a number of years, but this is just recommending that the city keep moving that process forward. Focus area 5 is workforce development. And recommendation 11 is to establish a Modesto Workforce Development Consortium led and coordinated by the city, which would facilitate regular information exchange among different partners or service providers in the education and workforce development areas, and allow for a better connection between those service providers and the business community. Recommendation 12 is to develop city-specific support services to supplement those partner-led workforce development programs. Again, we're not anticipating that the city gets into the business of providing workforce training programs, but there may be specific areas where the city could support the services of these partners to make them a more effective resource for the Modesto business community. Focus area 6 is regional collaboration, and this kind of lays out along the lines of the major initiatives that we've identified going on in the region currently. Recommendation 13 is to position Modesto as a leader in the Beam Circular Initiative and maximize the city's capture of the business and investment opportunities that are identified by or that are generated by Beam Circular. Recommendation 14 is to leverage the small business support system that's being rolled out by Stanislaus 2030 through that the document they're preparing, the Small Business Strategy and Implementation Roadmap. Recommendation 15 is to leverage the strategic framework of North Valley Thrive. And recommendation 16 is to actively collaborate with regional partners to improve region-wide conditions related, for example, to state and federal regulations, state and federal funding opportunities for infrastructure and other program delivery. Focus area 7 is entrepreneurship and innovation. The recommendation number 17 is to establish a city office of entrepreneurism and innovation, which would have an overall mission of maximizing local access to business startup resources and positioning Modesto as the premier North Valley location for technology-oriented entrepreneurial ventures. This could initially be essentially a partner-led initiative where the city has an office that's essentially referring to connecting to resources that are at the regional level. But we would hope that within a fairly short period of time, the city could supplement this with resources that would definitely focus entrepreneurial development opportunities in Modesto specifically. Focus area 8 is business attraction and recruitment. And we've broken this into the 2 types of business attraction that most communities engage in. Recommendation 18 is to implement a business attraction program focused on traded industry clusters. In other words, the types of industries that serve a market area that's much larger than the local community. Recommendation 19 is to implement a retail and restaurant tenant attraction program, mostly types of businesses that are focused on serving the local market, But in a setting like this where we're focusing on tourism, those can also in effect be traded clusters because they import dollars from people coming from outside the community to visit and spend money in Modesto. Focus area 9 is business retention and expansion, or BRE. This is, of course, a bread and butter activity of any effective economic development program. And here, and something that the city, of course, already does, here we're recommending that the city implement more of a boots on the ground BRE program that would identify red flags for businesses needing retention and expansion services, and to customize assistance packages based on the specific challenges facing the firms that are contacted through that outreach. Focus area 10 is small business development, and recommendation 21 is to implement a small business startup and assistance program. And we're calling this out as being separate and distinct from an entrepreneurial development program. We've included both in the plan. They're both very, very important. There's some degree of overlap, but there's also some unique needs or requirements of these different types of businesses that we believe warrant separate programs and resources. And then finally, focus area 11 is tourism and visitation. And here we're recommending that the city would lead coordination of various organizations and initiatives focused on expanding tourism. And for example, the city could take the lead in attracting visitor-related real estate developments, such as new hotels or other recreational facilities, and pulling together the various things that, for example, are focused in the downtown placemaking in a way that we would hope would take Modesto to that next level of as being a tourist or visitor destination. And we note, for example, the work that Visit Modesto is doing and their recent strategic plan process. This is something that the city would hope to actively connect with and help support implementation. So I want to thank you all for your interest, and I know many of you have participated in our process prior to today, and we really appreciate that interest as well as the very meaningful input your organizations have provided. With the time we have left, Trev and I or Paul would be glad to hear your comments or take any questions. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Roger. Who wants to first?
Are those in order of priority?
No, I don't think that they're in order of priority. They're just organized by focus area.
Okay.
These are just the 11 areas you should focus on as pillars of the plan.
How does this correlate with your long-term general plan amendment and study?
Yeah, so it's really important that our plans have consistency.
Comprehensive.
Yeah, that our plans have consistency with the general plan. The general plan is the public mandate, the Bible for what the city government should be doing with land use and land use alternatives. So what the plan is that we're collecting feedback at the same time as our general plan update. So this strategic plan, once it's complete, will be translated into what's called an economic development element, which will be much more high level. And so that way the mandate and the public input we receive in the economic development strategic plan process can be translated and put right into the general plan as an economic development update. It'll go in as a draft, and then people will be able to continue to engage in the general plan 2050 process to reaffirm that that is what is needed for our economy.
So when do you expect the comprehensive plan to be completed?
So the general plan still has a few years on its time frame.
Yeah, you've been studying it for a few years.
So I can speak a little bit to that. So we just started our land use alternative phase. And so basically we got all the feedback. I believe in early 2025, we'll be able to show 3 separate alternatives that shows what our potential boundary could be, whether we stay the same or we grow in what areas.
Because the plan, which was very good, the strategic plan, the way I see it, is that you have to grow. And all the past has been based on, no, we don't need to grow. We need to grow our businesses inside what we already have. And I don't see that. You referred to leakage. That leakage just happened in Oakdale, in Riverbank, in Turlock, and it's about ready to be in Salida. And so what are we doing to match that competition? I know this plan is part of that, and I think it's great that the city is doing that. But the comprehensive plan talked about, Roger talked about where a hotel ought to be or where this ought to be. You know, that should be part of that general comprehensive plan. One more thought and then I'll turn it over to Cecil. I get it. Is that, you know, the base jobs in this area have been agriculture related. And yet we're out of room in Modesto or close proximity to Modesto. Turocco's done a 2,000 acre business park. We've done nothing. We've done nothing to generate more jobs. I mean, create those core jobs in Modesto. It's been outside of Modesto. And so I would hope that you would move that comprehensive plan faster than it's been, and that this is a very, very good start, but that vision needs to go much broader than just what are we gonna do inside Modesto?
So that's my business part, and I'd love to connect with you after this meeting as well.
Thank
you. You're welcome.
I was afraid of that.
Two things real quick. I'm gonna recommend a twist on the outsider negative perception. Our PR agency and media agency and our team, what we found is locals are the ones who create a social digital negative perception that outsiders see. We're actually having incredible results with outsiders and national and international perception. So I'm going to recommend a twist on that and maybe look at it different. I think I sent Trevin and Jessica, somebody who does that in our industry. And then there might be alignment that I can connect you all with. Visit California is in the final phase of their rural region strategic plan for California. I chair the Central Valley program, so I think there's a lot of synergy between what you're talking about and what they're working on. So there might be some financial benefits as grants and other opportunities come out. This is great. Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you. Those we'll definitely follow up on those ideas.
So I have three numbers.
Oh.
Saul? One is, that you need to be connected to Beard for all of the economic available land that's available out there in jobs. Two is, I question whether or not, Jessica, economic development is working with engineering. And specifically, some to go to, some of us have been privy to the plans that the city has for the Standardford off-ramp, whatever we call it. And it lies absolutely in the face of this for retail leakage. And that. So somehow or another, economic development and that plan, they need to come together. Okay. And I think the mall would second that. And I know we've all recently received communication from opposition to that plan. And then third, because you and I are working on the workforce development board, I really think that this needs to be presented to workforce development. And either you or I, and we can get with our director and have a special session of real in depth, because workforce development is mentioned in here many times. And that we have very effective workforce development, but again, maybe isn't connecting the dots as he mentioned with what the city is envisioning. Cecil, does that connect also Opportunity Stanislaus? Yes, but the Opportunity Stanislaus is connected with us at workforce development. Well, that's what I'm saying is, I think the two need to connect. Well, if we can get, this presentation presented on board workforce development, and we should be able to get on the vice chair. As we invite Opportunity Stanislaus to sit in on that presentation. And, you know, with his group, his group is coming up, having a meeting at the museum.
Annual meeting,
Again, providing space for them in a couple of weeks, so we should be able to get that all coordinated.
Okay, if I may, you have a question? I want to try and get everyone's question.
Yeah, so Roger, do you have any data on, like, you say we have low unemployment, but do you have like, do you know what percentage of that is commuters or like what, how do we bring those types of jobs back here? And also, you say that we have, you know, 20%, like, you know, bachelor's degree. Are those the people that are doing the remote work? Like, what type of jobs are you bringing? Like, I mean, I look at the map over here and I see, you know, all the colors, and on the other side of the 99, there's nothing. Do you have any plans to incorporate that land and use that to develop for like housing? I mean, we have Stanislaus County's like almost 1 million acres, and only 9% of it is incorporated into the 9 cities. That's what being part of this. So what are your thoughts?
So I'd like to say we do have data about the percentage of the workforce that commutes out of the city, and we can actually drill that down to where the location of their job is that they commute to. And a little more involved than I can describe on the meeting today, but I'd be glad to share that information with anyone offline after the meeting if you're interested. But it does show basically what you're describing is that the portion of the workforce that is employed in, for example, the Bay Area tends to be the part of the community that does have higher degrees and tends to be working in technology related fields to a larger degree than what's happening locally. And that of course just reflects the types of jobs that are based locally versus the types of jobs that are based in the Bay Area and the Silicon Valley. As you asked about what types of jobs we would be positioning people who do not have bachelor's degrees, for example, to take in the future, one of the opportunities that we've seen very strongly in Modesto is what's going on in terms of training people who don't necessarily have degrees to be tech workers in very specific things like coding. And this is something that someone can be trained in a relatively short period of time and get at the end of it into positions that are very well paying and that they can do remotely. We were very impressed, for example, with the work that's being done by the organization called Bay Valley Tech. And you know what they're doing really indicates that there's a huge potential to grow that type of employment in ways that would benefit both the residents because they're getting higher paying jobs, but also potentially can become a way of attracting more of those firms to actually locate their businesses in the city versus just having workers that commute to them somewhere else.
Roger, we have a councilman with a question, and then Trevin, I'm gonna allow this to stay open for you guys to do after meeting conversation for a little bit, but I want to get the councilman's question out there before we close.
Almost said thank you.
Please take that back.
That's a habit every time. Maybe this is not in your scope of work, but the one negative impact that you have not addressed, and again, it may not be in your scope, is dealing with the homelessness in downtown Modesto and the negative impact that has. Now, that said, the city has made progress, positive progress on camp to home, you know, with our chat teams, with our downtown street teams. And, you know, again, we have done well there, but where we're having the issue is not camp to home, but street to camp. And so we have people on our camp that are having encampments in downtown Modesto, and yet we want to talk about making it an entertainment area. Downtown should be like our living room and our homes, where we welcome people into our houses, and that's where we entertain. Downtown should be our living room. Downtown Modesto should be our living room. So, you know, maybe it's, like I said, it's not in your scope, but we should have, look at designated areas where we can direct homeless people. And also restricted feeding areas. People with kind hearts, well, I see it all the time, maybe you do too. They will stop and give McDonald's food to whatever, to a homeless person. And they necessarily don't pick up their trash. So, you know, maybe we should have designated areas to keep that out of downtown. And again, maybe that's not in your scope of work, maybe that's another project. But saying that negative stuff, I do want to say that positive stuff is the city is really working hard on camp to home, and we've, since I've been on the council, even though I complain about it a lot, about the homeless, I've seen results. And so, but we've got to keep pushing there.
I'd like to throw a fun fact out there. You made a reference to a saturation of nonprofits, that we have a lot of them here. Of course, I would only have a percentage of that pie, but I have over 130 nonprofit members of the chamber, which is a big amount. It kind of gives you insight, because you know that's a minority out of the complete allotment that's here. And could you give us one point of clarification? You referenced waterfront more than once in your presentation. Are you referring to the river?
Yes.
Waterfront? I was wondering.
Is this presentation approved for external distribution and consumption?
So, work with us on who you want to share it with. It isn't for public consumption yet. Obviously, it's a public record. Anybody who wants it can see it. But how we want to sequence the presentations of these is right now, we primarily presented it to staff, to council, and then our stakeholders. You, as our other government relations committee members, are our stakeholders in this. And so we're sharing it to that selected group, and that's where we're concentrating feedback right now. We will develop a public review draft. That's the next step. So once we kind of get past this milestone, the next one is a public review draft, and that's will be shared with everybody and have more open discussions with.
Okay, great. No, that answers my question. There's a lot of folks in here that are interested in information